They've seen the best news and the worst news the city has experienced over the years. Some are famous in the Jacksonville media circle, while others are unsung stars, infamous for their talents. While you may know some of them, chances are you've never heard of many because they work behind the scenes. Today, on Jax Media Journals, we'll sit down with another industry veteran to reflect on their experiences as a media member in this great city.
Welcome to another episode of Jax Media Journals. I'm Latrania Tobert, a senior multimedia journalism student in the Department of Communication at UNF. Today, our guest is photojournalist Mike Bunker. He comes to our show with 40 years in the industry, all of them in Jacksonville. He's witnessed a lot of events as part of his job, and we're here to discuss the good, the bad, and the great times he's had. Mike Bunker, welcome to our show, and it's great to have you here.
Well, thank you, Latrania. It's good to be here.
Thank you. So, after graduating from University of Florida, I noticed that you went into the avenue of being a cameraman. What made you want to go into that direction versus being an anchor or reporter?
Well, I was always interested in photography, and I'm kind of a shy, reserved person, so I'm kind of more behind the scenes. So I wasn't really trying to get in front of the camera, although at University of Florida they trained us to be on both sides. One day we would be the on-air person, we'd work in teams, and then the next day we'd be the camera person, and to learn both sides of the industry.
Okay. Now, for quite some time, you've been a news photographer, so what has been the most significant moment of your career?
I can't really pick out just one. I mean, there's multiple. It's a different everyday kind of job. And you get to meet. One of the best things about it is just meeting new people every day from all walks of life. So that just the overall experience. I think for me, I don't have a particular moment.
Right. Now, as far as being in Jacksonville for all of this time, would you say that you prefer to do a lot of photojournalism work internationally or just more locally? Like, what is it about Jacksonville that made you want to stay here?
Well, I'm married, have a family here, and my wife and I are settled here, and we really love Jacksonville, and there's just really a lot of excitement on the local level, and we're just happy and settled here, so we decided years ago to make our decision to stay here, although I had opportunities to move on to other cities earlier on in my career, and I just decided we really love Jacksonville. So,
tell me about the USS Saratoga and your video being used numerous of times for that story about that Navy pilot.
Well, that we had an opportunity to go out and cover flight operations on the USS Saratoga, which has long been mothballed now or for scrap, but and so we went out there to do that, and it was just kind of a day in the life of Navy folk on the aircraft carrier, and then we were going to save save that footage for archive purposes, and then lo and behold, within the next year there was a Persian Gulf War, and one of the first losses for the United States was this Scott Spiker, who's from Jacksonville, Florida, pilot, and he was shot down and was missing for many years. And so they would go back to that footage a lot of aircraft like he was flying a FA-18, and they would use that footage over the years, just covering the Persian Gulf War and for talking about when this pilot was missing.
Wow. Now, as far as when you guys traveled over to Costa Rica, mm-hmm. and you had an opportunity to interview or be around the Costa Rican president,
right.
What did that feel like being over there?
Well, that was the plan really initially was to go to this archaeological site, but it was up in the mountains, and there had been a lot of heavy rains, and the roads were washed out, so we never could make it to that. And we're like, we need to find some hard news stories here to justify this trip. And it turns out that the president at the time, Oscar Arias, of Costa Rica had just won the Nobel Peace Prize for negotiating a peace between the Contras and the Sandinistas, and so we were able to get an interview with him, and try and make something out of the trip worthwhile. And he was a great interview, and just talked about the peace process and how he was able to do that, make that agreement.
Wow, that's awesome. Being that Jacksonville, I guess you would pretty much say this is kind of like your home.
Yes.
NFL, the Jaguars,
right.
The stadium,
right.
The whole franchise. Tell me a little bit about that as far as what you've done in your career.
Well, that was a very exciting time when Jacksonville got the NFL franchise, and I can remember being out at the airport when the owners had returned after they'd been awarded the franchise, and a bunch of fans showed up at the airport. The airport was packed full of people, and it was just a real exciting time, and just kind of a hard to believe moment that little Jacksonville could get an NFL franchise, because they're the other than Green Bay, were at the time the next smallest market, and a lot of people considered Jacksonville too small to support an NFL team. So it was kind of just a unbelievable moment, that we could actually get an NFL team in Jacksonville.
That's awesome. So I just want to ask you, there are many different students coming into the communication department, some of them going into production, broadcasting,
sure.
Or the journalism track. What is something that you want students to take away going into this field and maybe possibly venturing out into what you do?
Well, I think, if you're interested in this field, it helps if you're interested in what's going on in your community, and if you just, and like to meet people, because every day you're going to be meeting different people from all walks of life. And I think that's what keeps it, one of the things that keeps it interesting is just it's different every day. You never know what's going to happen. So, if you kind of like that unexpected and you like to meet people and you're interested about your community, what's going on here, then it could be a good opportunity for you.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for coming to the show today, and it's been such a pleasure having you here.
Well, thank you very much. It's really nice to meet you, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, if you're interested in listening to our podcast series, just check us out on Facebook at Jacksonville Broadcasting Memories, or visit our website, jaxbroadcasters.org. I'm Latrania Tolbert, a senior multimedia journalism student in the Department of Communication at UNF. Thanks for listening.
Jax Media Journals is a production of the Jacksonville Broadcasters Association with cooperation from the University of North Florida's Department of Communication.